the main topic of today that I want to talk about is progression for the game. Uh, where the developers see the progression of players and where they should be, where players actually are themselves, and where players feel that they should be at. Because we have different people, like for example, Casual's taking a break from the game because he feels that he cannot progress more. We have Tix at the same stage, but he's progressing and he feels that he's not at a peak yet. And then we have different players like Don, who likes to theory craft and throw things at the wall and see what sticks. So I think the first question or the first thing that we should lay out is where you guys are with your account, so we can have like a base of understanding of where we all are and how far we've progressed. So I don't know, like Tix and Don wants to start first.
Sure. I'm sitting at 35-20. It's obviously not, since like it's not like I can't do it. I'm just legit just lazy. Like I got all of the core units that I would need to get past 35, 36, probably start touching 37, I'm sure. But like I said, I'm just lazy and I'm like doing other side projects, like you said, like I'm messing around with, Poison and recording clips out of that and stuff like that. So for me, actual chapter progression hasn't been really a thing I care about right now.
I mean, it would be a pretty nice birthday session to just go through all the chapters,
Yeah, I might do that. Yeah, once I'm
next month. It's your birthday?
Next month.
Next month.
Okay.
So he should sleep on it for like a month. And then when your birthday stream, wham bam, and you're like, yeah, look, son, I just progressed 3 chapters. Now what? Catch up to me.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
Yeah, I'll be there. Let's go. Shots. I'll be
in terms of
shouting.
units and
Shot.
Yeah.
You can't drink
But,
on
like,
Twitch. That's a no.
Yeah, no, I
can
would
do
be
shots on
shouting it. He doesn't have to listen to it. It's just me shouting it.
Right. Well, my observation in progression is well, first things first, like what the devs intentions are and what we've been able to do in practice are two different things, obviously. So like where am I? 29, chapter 29. But my account is like 12 million CP. So I think if we're gonna make observations on game progression and game pacing, we could look at a few quantifiable metrics, which are combined CP level of your team, what your VIP level is, and how long you've been playing the game. So those are probably the three main things I think go into what you're trying to rationalize. Like, okay, so if your account level is under 5 million, this is where you should be, or quote unquote should be. But like I said, the intention, it's obvious that the intentions of the development of the game and what people are actually accomplishing are way too different. And it has everything to do with game balancing. So, it's been said in the podcast before about what people are trying to do or what the intended gameplay is. But if it is supposed to be a casual game, even if you were to just press buttons all day, I mean, you can press all the buttons in one cycle, and a cycle would be like daily, story, chapter, maybe tower, Shadowloo, PvP. So you're just pressing those buttons.
Do
So
you
the only
use
thing
B
that's gonna
Sengi?
What's that?
Do you? This is a dumb question, but do you use B Sengi?
100%.
Don, I know this is also a dumb question, but you use B Sengi to get to where you are, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And now
I
before
will say this.
Uh-huh.
I will say this. I do not use Beast Zangief to the levels of which Pix has. Like, I won't sit there and grind a stage on. I'm an auto player. I only play on auto. I don't
Okay,
play manually.
so you're similar to
So
me.
yeah, so I just play. I just play auto. Like, if I'm on a tough stage, I might play manual, but I'm not trying to advance. If I don't get it, if it doesn't happen in like two or three autos and two or three manual plays, I won't pursue it. I'll move on to
Just move
something
on.
else, or I'll stop playing the game
Yeah.
entirely.
Where
So
I'm at with my account before because I really want Tix to explain where he's at is because I have two accounts. I have the free to play that I play casual, and that one I
yeah.
started a month in after the game already launched. Chapter 27, 29, 15 million power, and team power is at 4K.
Uh-huh.
And then my personal account, I'm on chapter 3240,
Uh-huh.
and load up real quick. 38 mil account power and almost 8K in team power.
Uh-huh.
So my main account I've been playing since day one, and I put like at least $100 into it. And my free to
Uh-huh.
play, it's free to play. I haven't put stuff, and it's a monthly. Now with that, I would like Tix and if to show where he's at, and if Greg is willing to talk, I would love for him to show where his account is because he's also free to
If
play.
if I may, let me just I'm rounding the corner on what
Yeah,
on the progression and player strengths are.
So we have to take into consideration on when a player joins a game, what event is active when they join. We also have to consider their luck too, because like the topic is
I mean
progression.
we could
And,
baseline it in general because like at some point with it'll start getting too crazy, like accounting
yeah,
for
yeah.
every
Like let's
variable.
so like the 15. I've actually seen a few new users in the Discord asking for tips to get to 1540, which is actually really cool in my opinion. That they're
Yeah,
reaching out and they're
it's
they're
still
playing the game
happening.
and they're trying to get
Yeah, it's
yeah
still a
they're trying to
thing.
get past 1540. So like those players, what would be a good metric for them? Like they
Well,
obviously wouldn't have any characters at triple S.
that's the next. That's where I want to move in past this topic because we're gonna go into where the devs see the player
Oh,
base
okay.
should be at.
I got you. I got you.
Wait, I wanna say something about like the autoplay.
Yeah.
Because if you autoplay in story mode like that, there's no problem with that, right? But it's just because if you don't use Zangief and if you use auto and you don't land the interrupts, it's just the scaling for certain characters gets pretty crazy. For example, right? If you let a C3 for Dalsim, enemy Dalsim, through in auto, or a bison, right? If you let that any of your characters through, and then for a C3, he just does the 3 explode. So because like Combat Gal, right? Combat Gal has like HP scaling with defense scaling. Good thing he doesn't have his FS or cars to actually like benefit for that. But if that was the case, then he'll be a quite big threat in story progression. But we don't have any FS or cars in story progression. But what I was trying to touch upon is that like some of these characters get really crazy if you just let those combos go through. So it is way harder for players to play on auto just because they're taking like those absurd skills. Like sometimes you can breeze autos with certain matchups, right?
Oh
But
yeah,
when you
absolutely.
know those, yeah, when you know those units that is pretty hard to go against in auto because you're letting those combos through, then it start to be tricky. Like some people aren't stuck maybe in this particular stage, but if you're an auto user, you would be.
Like,
right? Just
right
because,
now, my personal experience is that exact thing that's happening. Chapter 3240, I am going against Beast Zangief, Abel, Dawson, and Viper. And
Yep.
I know that all I gotta do is put Beast Zangief in and prevent Dawson from comboing, and I'll beat the stage. I know that.
Exactly.
I'm not
Yeah,
stupid,
because
but I'd be damned if I do it. So right now, all I see is Dawson yeets his fireball, and I'm like, oh, look, I'm dead. And then two people survive, and then Dawson ends with the flames of death, and I'm like, oh, look, I'm fully dead. And then that's my match.
exactly. I mean, like certain characters, they go crazy because of the scaling of normal challenges. So it is way harder if you do take those combos up in the face.
Yeah.
Like usually for certain characters, you could take a couple of beatings, but because of how their multipliers are, plus the higher deficit in their stats, it would have been too ridiculous. So it's going to be a stopping point for certain players, because if you do interrupt, you're basically treating every single scenario as the same character, because you basically outright don't take any combos. So every character is basically the exact same.
Yeah, they're just
besides fights and
useless.
fights.
They're just useless. And that's one of the gripes that I have with Beast Zangief. But I would love to hear where you are in your story. Could you explain where you are so people can know?
Yeah. I'll explain. Before that, I just want to say how people with B Zangief cheeses, they struggle with Bison's fights, right? But then if you do auto, then those Bison fights basically feel like a normal fights for other. I don't know what I'm trying to convey, but what I'm trying to say is, like, if you do B Zangief, I mean not B Zangief interrupt, and you have problems with Bison fights, is because you let those combos through, or the AoE blast or whatever, the revive passive. But then if you are an auto player innate, they would have had a less harder time with dealing with Bisons, because they're already accustomed to dealing with other combos, letting it through, if you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's one of the comforts that I have is that, like, everyone's like, oh, I only have one interrupt with Beast Zangief, and now I gotta learn Honda this, that, and the third. And I'm over here like eating popcorn, like I don't use interrupts, so I don't got your problems.
Yeah, you're not gonna interrupt the bison. Like, you're gonna try and interrupt something else.
Yeah, like when it comes to Bison stages, I'm like stacking so much defense. I'm like, all right, Ehonda, get in here. I need a Zangief assist in here. Let me get Abel somewhere in the team. I got my Elena somewhere. I got my all heal EX moves. All right, I see an explosion coming, and I'm like, oh my god, he'll survive.
Yeah, that's team building. That's theory crafting, which is great. That's what I'm sure the devs were intending by creating that scenario, that you had to think outside of the box. But the box is so small, it's tough. I think the route that they're going with balancing in the late game, like how to offset player progression, is like, oh, instead of making team restrictions, you have to set more teams. It's like, why
Yeah,
wouldn't you just
they
make a
weren't ready.
restriction?
They weren't ready. I do agree that Tix, what Tix says, they're gonna change it. But again, Tix, you still haven't told us your progression, my guy.
Okay, well, I don't know when exactly I started, but it could be like 3 months. So I didn't start on a day one account. My power is 49 million for the team power, and my stage progression is 37-24. What else? I don't think tower stages is a pretty good indicator of how far you are, because you're gated by how powerful your team is.
Yeah,
But
that's a numerical
that
gate
is
at some point.
that is my current progression. And with when you start fighting with two teams fights, which is 26-24,
20.
or I don't know, it's around 24 or 28. You start to not use Bizangif alone, right? Because you're starting to look at different modes, and how the discussion that we had before, where like what you think, like, okay, bringing specific units to counter the stages rather than just using one team throughout the whole stages, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of what I'm already experiencing, in the sense of which of the two teams are easier to interrupt with E Honda, because E Honda is basically like another Bizangif, but a single target one, which is more manual play. By manual play, meaning strategic play, rather than just with Bizangif alone. And I actually find it better playing with E Honda than playing with Bizangif, just because besides being it feels fun, it's more like, okay, what fights can I which of the two teams can I actually interrupt? So if both of the teams is not a frontline interrupter, how am I able to still interrupt them, even though the front line isn't the ones that will be in range for E Honda, right?
Yeah,
And
you're trying to time when the unit goes to the front and does their abilities. Can you catch
Exactly.
them right when they're about to, when you need to headbutt them and bop them and stuff like that? So
Exactly.
it's a more. I feel like it's more skill intensive than that extent. That's
Yeah,
what,
I mean,
so that's why I'm like, I try to tell people, like, I'm not trying to diminish B Sangif and saying that it's not skill intensive, because you got to be good to be able to interrupt properly. You need to know the animations, you need to know the
Mhm.
timing. So it is a skill intensive thing to do. My gripe is that um it's not hard if you spend the time to learn it. And once
yeah,
you
I mean,
do
barrier of
learn it,
entry is not as great
yeah,
as E Honda or
exactly. The
something like that.
barrier entry. Thank you. Exactly. The barrier entry. The bar, you literally is on the floor. So once you step over it and you're like, oh yeah, I got this timing thing down. You start accelerating your account so far,
Mhm.
so far, and like I have no problem that people are in like chapter 36, chapter 37, chapter 38. Do you, boo boo? Lead the way for us so that way we know that it can be done. And I think that's awesome. I love it. That's why, like, I'm like, more power to you guys that do it. It's just that,
I think I understand. I think I understand what you're saying. So like the accelerated progression, the consequence of that is a misunderstanding of how fast you're going to progress the
yeah,
game.
you literally go from
Since
0 to
BC Geef
100
is
quick. With Beast and
yeah,
Geef, he
BC Geef
if
is
you
so
guys
easy
know
to
cars,
use.
yeah, if you guys know cars or anything like that, Guile is a hot rod, right? Homeboy will
Yeah.
get you where you need to be. Bison, he is the turbo on that car. Now you're going 400 miles per hour instead of 200 miles per hour. And then Beast
Yeah,
and Give is the giant NOS tank in the back of your car. And now you're
yeah,
going 1,000 miles per hour because you pushed the button and said YOLO.
yeah. No, I get it. I can see why that's the issue for sure. Because like if well, so, like with Diablo, it's like the distance between level 1 and level 80 is pretty much the same distance between level 80 and 100. So it by having a character that does what Zangief does, it inflates the player's expectations for what the rest of the game should be.
Yep. Cause and then this will I'm gonna throw this into it now, where the devs previously said, so we can accelerate it a little bit more. Where when I was in chapter, I would like to say 27, close to 30, Dino
Mhm.
had made mention that casual players were barely breaking chapter 10.
Yeah, well, they were downloading the game and
Yeah,
figuring out what the game was like, and then they stopped playing the game.
yeah,
That's how I view that observation. It's like, oh yeah, a lot of our users aren't past chapter
yeah.
10.
So that
Well, it's
they
like, well,
checked it out.
I
they
want to
played the
that.
game and they found out they don't like it, and then they stopped. So
But
if they're on chapter 10, when was their last login?
well, that's the other
That's the
thing.
other question.
That's the other thing is that he was saying that daily logins were meeting consistently around chapter 10 at that time. So, and that was like a month to 2 months in. So I would say now, if I'm just gonna just generalize from my experience of what I know play, if they were at chapter 10 in a month to 2 months in, they should be now probably breaking 1540, chapter 20, like in that 5 range meter of levels.
Mm.
I would like to add to that. I think also a majority of the earlier hype is to get like people are either re-rolling for servers to get Step of Honor reward, so that most of the accounts are inflated with those accounts, even though
Yeah.
they might be
Yeah, that's
uh,
a problem too.
same users, but then they have different multiple accounts just to see can I get a bison
Yeah.
in a reroll account, or can I get a snag the first either I think it was 6-40 and the second one is 11 dash something Steps of Honor. If I don't get it, then I'll just play a new account. If I don't get that account, then I just quit or just deal with it and just play the account as is.
It's weird. I don't understand that kind of mindset, because like I joined my server, I didn't reach my steps, and then I just kept playing my account. Like I don't know how fast you really have to go.
Yeah,
So
I think a
pretty
lot of
fast.
players just like okay, if I do get this head start, like why people reroll in general is that if I do not do what I do this, or if I don't put the time and effort to get a rerolled account, maybe with a bison, or if I don't do this to get the steps of honor, then it's like okay, then I would compensate it by paying $100, right, for a bison, or $100.
Yeah, so
Big
also you got to
value.
put it numerically as to what you'll get. So for those that chase the steps, if you hit
Yeah.
the number one, someone could correct me if I'm wrong. I think the prize is basically
It's
a week's
1,000 gems.
it's a week worth of stuff. No,
Yeah.
you
It's like
get
1,000 gems, isn't it?
more. No, you get more than that. You get tickets, you get coins, you get a whole bunch of
Oh, no.
random stuff and it's consistent. It doesn't just it's not just like a one time. You get it, and now you got a week's worth of stuff to accelerate your account. And if you get first, that means you're most likely to stay getting first, which means you'll keep getting that accelerated rewards. And that's why like a whale or someone, I know someone who was first since day one, and then another whale, a kraken, came in a month later, and they became they took top spot from there on. The other whale
Oh.
quit. He was just like, all right, I'm done, I'm no longer first. He dipped.
That
It's such
happened.
a weird attitude to have.
Yeah,
I
the
don't- it's foreign to me.
number that badge matters, man.
I mean,
It's
here,
foreign to me.
it's
Yeah.
like how I mean, free to play casual is a good example, right? You're too used to
Yeah.
the dopamine that you get. Like, okay, I'm getting these rewards, and I'm getting these rewards again, and then someone comes in and sweep the rewards for me, right? Then you no longer have that luxury or experience, right? So then it demotivates you for continuing further.
Yeah, I'm just
That's that like competitive. That like I get it. Like I'm super competitive too. But at that meme or that gif, it's just a game. Why you mad? Like, like
Yeah.
I get, but I do understand the competitive side where they're just like, all right, now the effort I just did it's pointless now. And like I do understand it where you're just like, man, I put effort in and someone just swooped it in, and now I probably could not regain it. And to some that's a bad that matters. There are players, like I said, players are hitting chapter 36, chapter 37, 38, whatever. Whales are hitting chapter 40, whatever, God knows. And then they're like, all right, I'm bored. Now what? And I'm just like, you're bored because you burned through the game. Like, I get you got there, like, cool, but like the consequences to your actions, you gotta eat your cake if you're gonna get, order a chocolate cake, a speed of chapter 37, and you get it. I order chapter 36 now. All right, well, here's 36. What you gonna do with it?
I mean, that's what free to play is experiencing now, right? He feels like he's in chapter 36 and that he's in a stopping point, and that he feels like he can't get anything away from the game, right? So that's why he starts to slow down and to quit the game.
Yeah, so it's that, like, it's one of those things where you got to be careful what you ask for. Like, all right, you want the acceleration, cool, but what is the consequences of the acceleration? What did you gain from the acceleration? What are you doing now? Okay, now you're idling with more resources. I mean, cool.
Yeah,
but
you got to keep pumping it. You can't just. You got to keep pumping it. There's that. You got to have that mentality or that kind of understanding that in a game like this, you got to keep pumping.
Yeah, the game is an idle game, and it's testing your patience, and in an extent where you're pushing the boundaries of where you should not be. That means you're extending the waiting period of patience, and patience is not a virtue many have in this world. And that's just how I feel. Like, for example, like those that are in the further chapters of 36 and up, how are you feeling now about the game, and what are you doing in the game?
I want to speak on this because I personally like it, right? Like, free to play casual thinks it's not good, or it's, for me, I personally, it's not like I like the challenge. It's just like how I see it is I've been using the exact same team in challenge mode, like the Guile, Bizangif, or you can use whatever. It's just the normal Bizangif, Bison, and stuff like that. And right when you start using multiple teams, you start to feel, for me, it feels more fun because, for example, I'll give you a scenario, right? Going back to the E-Honda scenario, you start to look at things differently in the sense, okay, wait, Guile is the one that supers, right? How am I supposed to interrupt with E-Honda when Guile supers? And with that, he basically goes to the front. If you look at Viper, she just ults from the backline, right? But then, like, Dalsim or like Guile, they go to the front and starts to super. And usually there's going to be a tank still in front of that. And how to counteract that is to push with Fashion Blanca's super back enough that when they do come from the back, from Guile or Dalsim or whatever, comes from the back, they'll be front enough that E-Honda would land that one to the front. For me, I personally find that quite exciting, right? Like, to play around those, or when the tag unit comes down, you snipe him, or stuff like that. Small niches that
I'm not gonna lie, it's amazing being able to C3 a support when they come in, like when Elena comes in to heal. I'm like, it's like, yes, die.
Exactly. And
that level. Yeah, I don't mean to cut you off, but I just to put it in layman's terms, because I'm getting a little lost in the technical talk. But basically, at the level of play that you're at and the difficulties you're facing, there's a sort of variance with your play style that's rewarding because you're figuring it out.
And here's the thing: it's just like how you pick and plug different units for different scenarios. You basically pick and plug different, not techniques, but in different executions with different teams. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you're using exact same stuff. That's why I find it personally fun. I'm probably going to
in the future. Yeah. So in the future, if the game is attempting to go into the long term, there needs to be more permanent activities to to which there's team building restrictions. Like you have to create a puzzle, so to speak, kind of like how the trials are. Like when the Sagat trials come out and they're like, oh, you can only use these units. I find that really fun to try and figure that out. Like, okay, so I need to use like a healer or whatever, just try to set the puzzle pieces out in front of a player and have them figure it out, and having different ways to figure out a challenge and stuff. But instead of a controlled environment, like how the trials are, because the trials are a controlled environment, they give you the units and they give you the opponent that you're facing. You have to do it with your own units. So at a certain point, you're going to have to expect the players not to be able to finish it because the team's not leveled up. And then that'll entice the player to try and level up characters that they weren't intending on using.
I also like what Ramios suggested, right? Like the challenge mode, ban mode, it's like a different type of mini game
that
maybe is weekly or bi-weekly, like a challenge mode as well. Like you cleared it.
I love it. I'd instantly ban Beast Zangief and Bison 100% all day, every day, nonstop. I'm forcing motherfuckers to make team. Now you gotta be different. Think outside the box.
That's gonna be best in both worlds, in the sense where, like, since you're stuck in challenges, you have a different game mode that is maybe changing, that you won't be, okay, you know what, I'm gonna be stuck here for a month or a few weeks. I'm just gonna do a different game. It's like a labyrinth type thing. But it's more towards the challenges instead of just like
you combine Shadowloo and you combine like some other type and a challenge mode.
Yeah, what is that thing called? Like the black global operation or something like that.
Yeah, global operations, inverse world. What's that challenge mode that we have right now on where you have to like have 4 fire type units and not including assist and stuff like that? What is that mode called?
Path of Trials.
Yeah, Path of Trials. Yeah, that's true.
Trials. Yeah, so if they could combine Path of Trials and combine Shadowloo into a permanent game mode or something like that, that'll at least have other things for other players to do.
But they just need to add more activities.
Yeah.
I think, and to be honest, I legitimately think this will go to that topic of where the devs expected players to be, because initially when the game launched, people legitimately got to a point where they got to a stage where no units was showing and they could not play the match, where devs had to add more stages into story mode. And they got to a point now where they're doing it again. People are at that point with chapter 40, whatever number, and there's no stages past it because they need to break past that point.
Well, the interesting thing is, for me, is what does that look like? I mean, you can only raise the power level so high and expect players to be at that level, but even when you have a character, there's a ceiling. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just keep adding story chapters.
I think it's more than people to do it. To be honest, I think it's more than Beast Zangief. I do think that he is obviously the biggest culprit as to like the issue of the game, but I also think that the gameplay being different while keeping the coding the same impacted the game more than the devs thought it would. Like,
absolutely. Yeah, it's a balancing issue. It wasn't properly balanced.
Yeah, like people in China are now in chapter 36 or whatever, and the game's been out for 3 years, while we're doing it in month 4.
Yeah.
So
the spending habits might be different, or their packages might be different.
The whole region, everything's
really
different. Everything is different,
Yeah.
and I legitimately think that the devs did not expect the disparity. The gap is way too wide, and they're like, holy shit.
The CN version doesn't have idle rewards. Like, it's not an idle game.
Yeah. You're earning everything by clicking and doing stuff. But us,
I think we don't give the devs enough credit of their intelligence. I honestly feel like they knew what they were doing, and by setting the groundwork for what
like they knew what they were accomplishing, but
Oh no,
they didn't think it would come to fruition.
yeah, no, I'm not saying that they mistakenly did bad stuff. What I'm saying is, it's kind of like, when I don't know, I use sports analogy. It's like when you're in the baseball and you're hitting the batter and you're like, okay, I hit the ball, and you're like, huh, that's going pretty far.
Yeah.
Oh snap, I hit a home run. That's what I feel like it did. They were ready to hit. They hit the ball and they were expecting it to go to the outfield or get first, second base, but they hit a home run, and then now they're like, oh shit.
I think more or less it's what the analogy is walking a batter. So like in baseball, you'll walk a batter to a base because they can hit a home run. So you just want him to take a base in the hopes that the hitter behind him is not going to take a base. So it's a strategic option. It's like you have like Juan Soto, right? You gotta sometimes you gotta walk Juan Soto to the base, depending on the batting order and the pitcher on the mound.
Yeah.
So but Juan Soto will crank that ball into the next dimension.
I'm gonna take it even more
loaded. So
I'm gonna take it even more. You gotta walk Big Papi, and you're throwing the ball to the
Big Papi.
Yeah,
exactly.
but have you ever seen the video where they throw the ball to the walking distance, and he's like, "Nah, son," and whacks the ball and still hits a home run. He's like, "You ain't walking me. I'm walking myself."
Yeah, that's the risks that you take. So the risks that the developers took was when they had created the game initially and the packages and stuff, it was always intended to be a very profitable venture, but I don't think they anticipated what players were going to be capable of after they spent the money. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
No, I
think it falls in line that all devs, this is a thing in gaming community. Someone's always going to break a game, do an exploit, do a glitch, and the devs was just like, huh, how the hell you do that? They legitimately just don't expect it.
Yeah, that is true. That happens in Destiny 2 a lot. Don Buka will attest to that.
For what?
What?
That they develop something and somebody exploits the game and they have to fix it. In Destiny 2, it's kind of the same metric. Like you're trying to get loot, or you're trying to circumvent the rules to do something quicker.
Yeah.
So
and then go ahead.
I was gonna say, most recently, just touching on that same thing, my friends and I, we took part in there was a cheese you could do on the brand new dungeon with the final boss on master mode, like the most difficult content, where you could kill the boss without engaging it at all and skip every mechanic.
Yeah, those are
and we got ridiculous loot, ridiculous accolades and stuff like that. But
the
fixed
Division
it now.
had that. The Division had something like that too, where you could put the map on the hardest difficulty, skip through the wall, skip through 90% of the stage, go into the boss mode, trigger the boss mode, and then kill it while behind the wall, and he couldn't get to you. But because you only triggered the boss and not beat the mission, he would spawn again in a timed mode. So you would just farm him for hours, just getting the boss loot.
So long story short, it's like the oversights that development makes, sometimes they fix it. In this game, it doesn't seem like they're just like, okay, so instead of fixing the issue, which it's far too late to fix the issue, but instead of fixing the issue, they just increase the amount of difficulty. So they're just adding story chapters. I wouldn't say nonchalantly, but they're adding story chapters and just increasing the sink at which damage pours into. So but there's going to be a ceiling. Sooner or later, there's going to be a ceiling, but without creating another mode or proposing an idea
is the barrier.
It's just weird. It honestly feels kind of lazy, but I'm not going to be too critical of it because I'm not there yet.
I mean, that's the thing is, it's like, it's in terms of to be detrimental in pushing people, players to move forward. Multi-team is a smart thing to do, because you're forcing
Yeah.
players to continue playing to build up.
Yeah.
I would say that's a fair assessment.
I mean, it's tedious
just-
as a player.
Yeah.
Like I like
It's
for
just
me, I
weird.
just now getting I'm working on my 4th Fighting Spirit 30. I just
I can't-
now got my second character
Yeah,
6 of 6.
Yeah, I don't want to be too critical of that kind of at that level in the game because I'm not even there yet. So it's like me complaining that a master mode is too hard and I'm not even there. That's basically what my angle is too. Is like even though I see the stuff that's happening to other users, I'm not there. So I'm not personally
You're getting there.
dissatisfied.
Again,
I'm getting there. Yeah, I'm on chapter 29.
I think the one thing I would like to put is that I would like to put an analogy for it takes. It takes could probably say that I'm right or wrong, but I'm gonna say interrupts in the terms of guns. Right now, in the terms of a gun, Beast Zangief is a bazooka because he interrupts, he AoE interrupts, he aims for the whole team, and he's gonna smack a whole team, and he's gonna do that job. And then Honda is more of like a handgun. You know, he's waiting for the right time.
He's a shield though.
Yeah, no, but he himself, the unit himself is a shield. But in the terms of the interrupt, he's a handgun. You got to wait for the right opportune time to pop a dude in the head. Not necessarily a sniper, because like I would see a sniper would be more like a backline interrupter type of thing. That would be cool.
I mean,
Imagine if Guy could interrupt. That would be tight. If Guy had to interrupt, that would make so much sense for him to exist.
I mean, Guy does.
He has an
Guy-
interrupt?
Yeah, he has an interrupt on his super, and it interrupts only the back line, but it is quite inconsistent because it does happen, right? It does happen. Then for it to happen 2 or 3 times in a row, it's basically like winning a lottery, and going. Yeah, so for as an interrupter, like if you're looking at Honda, he does 50% 2 times, and if you EX freeze trick, then you can land the both of those hits. So it's more doable for it to do it repetitively rather than if you were just relying on Guy interrupting 20% on the backline like 2 or 3 times in a row. But I mean, I do agree with with your analogy. It's like saying you have multiple arsenals in your weapons, and you basically can
The word you're looking for is potency.
Yeah,
How potent a skill is.
Yeah, and like for me, right? I wish I had an OG Zangief pass 6 out of 6 scar to block the passive. Like I don't have that in my arsenal, and like knowing seeing other people succeed with OG Zangief, it's like shit. It feels bad because you don't have it in your arsenal, and you kind of want it in certain situations, because he's the only unit in the game that does that role, right? That AU that
passive delete,
nullify.
Yeah,
and it's like Honda. I mean, not Honda. Zangief is the only character in the game that is an AoE interrupt. There, I don't think. I mean, Makoto's an AoE interrupt as well, but it's such a low
such a small window.
And
it's pretty unreliable. Yeah,
yeah. You need to do so much situations, or you need to have so much conditions for it to actually start working. But so what I'm trying to say is, if you don't use Zangief, then that's like one weapon that you can't use to tackle the stage down.
All right, so I guess here's my question in terms of progression with what Zangief has done and how interrupts are working and stuff like that. Would another Zangief style unit be beneficial or more of a hindrance for the game? Would it force players to get so far ahead that instead of waiting for 2 weeks to idle, they're now waiting a month to 2 months because they're interrupting everything? or would
Well,
it
there-
like revitalize? Well, I wouldn't say revitalize because the game's not dying, but would it like spanking the people in the butt and light a fire under people and have it be like, yes, it's the greatest thing ever?
Well,
I mean,
my
thing, right?
thing.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
Okay,
I
right.
was just saying, like,
what I was saying was I think this isn't really a good answer to that question, but it was more or less an observation what people are starting to experience. I think that the the problem right now is that characters are gaining skills, like their skill arsenal, too quickly. So like when you look at cars or fighting spirit, you have to work or you have to play the game to obtain those exclusive passives. But what it should have been in the beginning was that you had to level up your skills. Yeah, you would have to have leveled up your combo skills in order to get the benefit, not just raise the level of the character. The reason why I bring that up is, the game is meant to be an idle game. So like there's another idle game we used to play called Ooh La La. It's like it's purely an idle game. Like you'll literally have to do nothing. But the skills in the game, you have to level up your skills. Leveling up your character doesn't level up your skills. But leveling up your character will level up their base stats. So there's a forced barrier of skill potency, because even though your character has good flat stats to survive a fight, their skills might not be good enough. So that would have been the way that, if I had to change one thing about the game in general, it's like it sounds bad on paper or saying it out loud now, 4 months into the game, but we should not have been able to use skills like B Sangeev's skill or skills like E Honda's skill right off the jump. It would have slowed the game down so much better and more naturally, in my opinion. But it's too late now. Like I said, it's a bad answer to the question. But to answer your question, I don't think they should make another B Sangeev ever.
For me, I would say yes, just because, okay, hear me out. One is that you can either pick Zangief or the new unit that does interrupt. So it's not just, okay, Zangief every single time for a single team fights. And also the second point is that since this is a casual game, not a lot of people who does want to tackle those multi teams, it makes it more easier. Like the barrier of entry would be less straining for them if there is two of those. And I don't know, that could be good for players like who's pushing it to the limit. Also players that actually want to play the game. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I don't know if you get my.
Like it would be another option. It would be another option for more dedicated players, but it wouldn't matter to casual players, is what you're trying to say.
It kind of does, because casual players, even though I mean, they probably can see that Zangief is pretty meta, because in the game itself, it recommends teams, right? And probably with how inflated many of the players use, most of the recommended teams says Zangief. So they probably know why they're strong. Like, okay, wait, this character is strong. If they don't look at other medias to find out, they use the in-game media.
Yeah, there's replays and stuff that shows you, leaderboards and all these things. They just look at it and they copy.
Yeah, exactly. So then once they do know, even if they're casuals, they probably at least, try to explore the other stuff within the game. And one of those sub thing is like the recommended lineups and stuff like that, or replays. And seeing that, they're like, oh shoot, Zangief, people are using it like this, right? So then if I try use it, and then they start to realize themselves with other media that it could actually know how to use them, or at least why people use them.
So you're saying a different unit would create more variance?
So
Yeah.
one thing I would like to speak on is Dino did mention previously that the devs are aware of the meta, and they're seeing how even casuals are using Fashion Blanca, Guile, and B-Thingy. Like, these teams are consistent across the board, and even also the player base has been vocally uh have not vocal they've been vocal about the topic of the disparity of diversity in teams. I know the topic of B-Thingy has popped up multiple times. Everyone knows the topic of Bison's already dead horse, but these things have been made known to be problematic, and everyone is using it. Dino did make it known that they're aware of this and that they're working on trying to diversify the meta. How? That is to be seen, because we know that nerfing is unlikely. So it'll most likely be done through buff or other units.
Well, you could impose restrictions. You wouldn't outright ban the character. You would have the character be able to be used in other places. But like if you were going to, you'd have to impose restrictions on the where the unit can be used. That's how you would balance the unit as in the way that the game is now.
I think the issue with that is it's like you. The first thing I thought when you mentioned that is you're going to tell me that I can't use Dawson in certain modes. I do not like you. The fact that I can't use him in Thunder Tower and Wind Tower is already bad enough as it is for me, sir. Let me use my damn units.
You want to limit people from using B-Skeef, but you don't want to be limited. Can't have, bro.
I mean, I don't use Dawson when I can't use him, so it is what it is.
Can't move.
So
Yeah, you can't just be doing that and then expecting something else, Turtle. You're gonna.
yeah,
you're
I know.
drag my
I
boys
try to
Zangief
keep it
through
a
the
fair
dirt.
boat. I try to keep it a fair boat. That's why I probably wear my Dawson biasness, but I also I eat those when I gotta take
You
that
know
out.
me. I use Dawson.
But
You know me. I use Dawson. You've seen my Dawson.
Yeah, I know, and I'm proud. Every time someone shares the Dawson, I'm like, yes, excellent, another one.
so here's what we need to do. We need to bring in more debuffs so T-Hawk has use. We need to bring in heals, and then Charming Dudley is a god.
Yeah.
Man, I still try to vouch for Combat Gal. If only he did like more
No, we
than
don't
one
care about Gen 6.
one
Get out of here,
debuff.
Gen 6.
Well, yeah. If you retool the debuffs and how they work, it would stand to reason that it would be like, oh, okay, so let's nerf the weaker characters to be a little bit more competitive, and it might change people's opinions based on their performance. So moving forward, and a lot of these changes that we're proposing is to satisfy new users, correct? Like, I'm safe in assuming that the reason why
No,
we're
just in general, I would assume, because it's like it's not necessarily new users; it's just casual players, where they should be and how they what can they do with the tools given to them. Because like I have a feeling that for me, if I'm a dev and I don't want to nerf, how can I make people look away from B-Thingy? The first thing that pops into my head is the lady in red ideology. Put something shiny and pretty in front of them and they get distracted. So another B-Thingy, I don't know, maybe a Nero or a Virgil, and they're like, hey, look, AoE interrupt, and now people are like, shit, I gotta spend guap.
well, you have if you change up. Here's a good one, at least based on what I'm making an observation, and this is my experience. So if you look at a game like Magic the Gathering, and like they have 25, 30 years worth of cards that's in their card pool. So like when you sit down and you play Magic, you have to ask them what format you're playing, whether it be standard, modern,
Legacy, or there's another one called Commander, but that one's purely casual. But the to make a long story short, a new card will come out and make an old card really strong, and it happens a lot. So if they make a new character that interacts with the old characters in a positive way, and have the old characters be characters that aren't used, that would change the dynamic of a lot of things. Like I think Thunder is really misrepresented.
Mummy
in
Dawson,
the
I'm
game.
waiting for him. I'm waiting for Mummy Dawson to be Thunder, and then wham bam, thank you, ma'am. Everyone's rocking a Dawson, and I'm just gonna be like, yes, more of us,
That's true.
more
But
of
like,
us.
if you have like a unit like um Summer Yang is phenomenal. Like Summer Yang was phenomenal for fire teams or fire factions, and to change the faction bonuses. Like that's another way they could do it, is put priority on the faction bonuses instead of putting priority on team comp. Like instead of putting priority on a single unit, why don't you impose you would impose an opportunity, like here's an opportunity to do something in the game that you might be able to do, but you have to use like 4 Thunder or 6 Thunder. You know what I mean? So like if you look at Summer Yang really lines up into that reasoning, because if you have to have a certain number of flame faction units, Summer Yang fills in as a support much better than Fei Long. Fei Long is like a dedicated assist, but he's not a dedicated support.
So
So to speak.
I would like to throw a counter to that. Some people are now vouching for Fei Long in the unique in the terms of like the niche of pure fire. Like if you have a rotation of pure fire, then Fei Long is actually like getting up there. A lot of people are like, yeah, don't sleep on it.
Well, not
So-
fire damage, but fire faction.
Yeah, fire faction specifically. If you keep the
No, but
combo
like-
of fire.
Some players actually use him outside just flame, because you can interact with him in the sense of, if the tag unit is not flame, because his passive only works, it breaks if the unit that is not flame uses a combo or super, right? Then the Dorukan breaks. But in the tag unit, if it's like Fashion Chun-Li or other types like wind or lightning, which is not a flame, if it's from the tag unit, it doesn't count
I did
as
not
if
know
they're
that.
flame or not. Yeah, so then you can use him even on a non-flame team. So for example, you have Bison, Fei Long, Dalsim, Fashion Chun-Li, or Fashion Blanca, or anything like that. And you start to use Dalsim, C1, Fei Long, C2, the unit in the tag, which is not flame, and then C3, Dalsim.
It goes
It still
on.
keeps the
Oh,
Dorukan, and
shit.
the buff is not flame damage buff. It is 45% damage buff, along other things like 30% crit damage buff,
Yeah,
which is a
crit
crazy
damage
support.
and all these other things. It gets pretty nuts. It's that.
Yeah, so
I know it gets.
you
Pretty
can
nuts.
use them, and here's the thing: Bison gets those buffs as well, because it's a pure damage buff, which Bison is not a flame unit, but still takes advantage of that Darukan.
Oh, so now you're telling me I gotta build my Fei Long more than just an assistant. Got it.
You gotta build everybody, Turtle.
I know. There's so many projects, man. It's insane. Like right now, legitimately, so my main team at this moment is Fashion Blanca, Dawson, Elena, Bison, and assist is interchangeable. Like that's my main. Fei Long is my assist, and then I change between Mayor Cody, Abel, E Honda, Zangief, depending on the match. And then for my second team, like I'm not joking. At this moment, I'm legitimately waiting for Fashion Dawson and Mummy Dawson. So they will be whatever they are determines my at least 2 of my 4 teams. But at the moment, I am building projects on the side that hopefully should work with them? Question mark. Like I got E Honda, Abel, Viper, Dudley, Fascia Sakura. Like I'm not building a primary DPS because I feel like that will like the Dawsons will speak to me and tell me what I need in those roles. So that's what I'm waiting for. But you know the options are there. But one thing I do want to bring back to the progression because of like the whole topic of needing to build everyone.
Yeah. But how fast? How
That
fast are people?
that is the question. The question
Yeah,
is how fast? How fast? Don, I would like to get your opinion on this. How fast should we be able to max out a character, and how fast should we want resources to be given to us or to be able to be gathered?